In today's lesson, we are going to be looking at the cosine law. So the cosine law is similar to the sine law in that it's a formula to solve for sides and angles in non-right triangles. So when we're dealing with non-right triangles, there are going to be two scenarios or two kind of formulas that we could use. And we use either one depending on the information that's given to us. Right, so we do have to not label the triangle because we can't label the hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent in our non-right angle triangle, but we have to see what information is provided to then get a better sense of which law to use. The last lesson looked at sine law. Today we're going to look at cosine law. And there are two different versions of the formula for cosine law. Similar to sine law, where there were two different versions, there's also two different versions for this one when we're looking for a side length and one when we're looking for an angle. Now, the formula is essentially the same formula, it's just rearranged differently, but I'm going to be giving you the rearranged version, so you don't have to worry about rearranging the formula on your own. So when we're trying to find a side length, what information we should be given is what's referred to as a sandwiched angle. And what we mean by that is that in our triangle, we are given a side, an angle, and then a side. So we're given two sides and an angle, and that angle is in between or sandwiched between the two sides that we're given. And now you'll see three different versions of the formula. And they're essentially all the same. The only difference is we're changing or swapping out the letters depending on what side we're looking for. The main thing though that you want to make sure is paired up is the side you're looking for, and you're given the angle for the side, or the paired angle for the side you're looking for. So if I'm looking for side C, I have to be given angle C and the other two sides. If I'm looking for for side A, I have to be given angle A. If I'm looking for side B, I have to be given angle B. Now you can just use only one of these formulas and just label your triangle appropriately, so that you're always finding, say, if you use this one, you can just relabel your triangle so that you're always finding side C. But if not, then you have your three different versions there to look at. So let's go and look at an example. We want to find side length M. So side length M is this side right here, right across from angle M. Now, you might say, okay, well, I have M, L, and N. I don't have A, B, and C, and that's what the formulas were up here. So if that's the case, then we can just go through and let's change these. We can get rid of M, or L, M, and N. It doesn't really matter. Those are just points. So we can get rid of them. Right? So if we want to find side B, or side C, we'll stick with that first one. Let's label this side C. That means this has to be angle C. And then we have A and B. Now A and B doesn't really matter which one goes where. So I can label this A, this becomes side A, this is B, this is side B. It doesn't really matter what we label the other two sides because the order in our formula doesn't really matter. It's not going to change our answer. So I'm going to write out my formula. C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times cosine C. Now I'm going to plug in my information. I don't know the side length squared. I do know side A is 15, so 15 squared. Side B is 12, so 12 squared, minus 2 times 15 times 12 times cosine of angle C, or 60. Now, this is just going to be one big calculation. Now, you might be comfortable doing this on your calculator all at once. If not, what I would suggest is break it up into two parts. Calculate the first part before the subtraction, and then calculate the part after the subtraction. And then you're just going to subtract whatever two numbers you get. Right? If you're comfortable with your calculator, or you have a pretty decent scientific calculator that you can plug in a lot of things into, you could just do this entire thing all at once. However you do it is up to you. If I go through and kind of step by step, the first part becomes 369 minus, and then 2 times 15 times 12 times cosine 60, I get 180. So 369 minus 180, 69 minus 180, I get c squared is 189. Now you might think, okay, well, I'm done. I've finished everything. But if you look at it, right, that side length looks pretty big compared to the other ones. And we do have one more step. We do still have to get rid of that squared on the c. And in order to do that, we do the opposite of squaring, which is square rooting. So we have to square root our answer at the end. The square root of 189 is 13.7, or we could just say 14 if we want to round it. And that makes a lot more sense in terms of the other side lengths, right? So 14 or 13.7 seems much more reasonable compared to the other ones. And so that's using this cosine law formula to find the side length of, or the missing side length of a triangle, or a non-right angle triangle. I guess I should also mention, when we go back and look at it, when we talk about the sandwiched angle, because that is the one thing that we're looking for, side, angle, side, SAS, the sandwiched angle. So that's what we're looking for in a non-right angle triangle to be able to determine that we have to use the cosine law. When we're finding angles, again, similar, there are certain scenarios or certain information that we have to be given that will indicate that we use cosine law. And when we're finding an angle, we have to be given all three sides, or side, 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 SSS, which however you want to remember it, we have to be given all three sides. Now, because we're given all three sides, where we place the information is going to be very important. And again, we do have three different formulas. And they're essentially the same formula again, just with the letters or finding a different angle, and then that's just switching the letters around. Right? The main thing, what we want to make sure is that for the angle we're looking for, we're subtracting that paired side in the formula. So that if we're finding angle C, we should be subtracting side C in the formula. If we're finding angle B, we're subtracting side B. Finding angle A, we're subtracting side A in our formula. Right, so just again, some tips to make sure that we're labeling our triangle properly. We're putting the information in the correct spot. Again, similar to the last one, or just in general, if you don't want to use all three and you just want to remember one, then just make sure you're always relabeling your triangle so that you're finding angle C or whichever formula you pick, and then label your sides appropriately. So here, if I want to find the measure of angle X, so I want to find this angle here. Looking at this triangle, it is a non-right angle triangle. And so now I have to determine, am I using sine law or cosine law? And looking at this, I should recognize, okay, I have side, side, side. So I have all three sides. I should be using cosine law. Now, again, looking at our triangle, we don't have any angles labeled as A, B, and C. So I should probably relabel this just to make it easier. Because the formula for angle C was our first one, let's relabel that angle as angle C. And A and B don't really matter for which ones we label. The order won't affect anything in our formula. But what side we're looking for will. So that means this is side B, side C, side A. I'm going to write out my formula. So cosine of angle C is equal to A squared plus B squared minus C squared divided by 2AB. I'm going to plug in my information. So cosine C, I don't know that angle yet. Side A is 14, so 14 squared plus 10 squared minus side C squared, so minus 20 squared, divided by 2 times 14 times 10. I can simplify this now, and again, an easier thing to do to help, you could do it all in your calculator at once, or simplify it in two parts. Simplify the top, then simplify the bottom, and then divide. So we have 14 squared plus 10 squared minus 20 squared. We get negative 104 divided by 2 times 14 times 10. We get 280. I can divide this right now if I want. So cosine C equals negative 104 divided by 280. And we get negative 0.3714. But looking at that, that doesn't really look like an angle. That doesn't seem to make sense. It seems too small. And you would be right. If you remember from right angle trig or from sine law, the very last step when we're trying to find an angle is we need to use the inverse. So I need to use the inverse cosine negative 1 of negative 0.3714. And we get 111.8, or we can round it to 112 degrees. So again, that's using the cosine law to find a missing angle. Right. So now you have one example of each, and now we have our two laws to find sides and angles in non-right angle triangles. Right. We looked at the sine law yesterday, and we just finished up cosine law right now. So again, please make sure you are going through and practicing this. It might be a new concept for you, depending again on what course you took in grade 10. So it will be helpful to go through and practice and make sure you're comfortable rearranging or using these formulas to find a side length or an angle.